So I'm Mark Singh, Senior Sales or Solutions Engineer at Progress. I'm going to step you through the WhatsUp Gold interface. And the interface I'm sharing here is the main interface for WhatsUp Gold. It is an agentless solution, Microsoft SQL Server in the backend, and the web interface there we presented using IIS. So during the install, all of this gets configured for you automatically. So really no reason to get into IIS or SQL for that matter. The product installs everything, configures everything, and once you start it, it's browser-based or web-based, so you'll be able to log in and see your devices. Now, we're looking at an initial view here. Once we log in, you will see this is the My Network tab. This is the tab that's going to give you a quick glimpse into your status of your devices. Anything that is green is up, anything that is red is down. You might have heard Mark mention earlier, anything with a red dot just simply means that there's something that we're monitoring on this device. In this case, a fan is down. That monitor is down on this particular device while the device itself is up. You can still ping the device. We can still monitor network traffic and so forth on these devices. Now, it does layer 2 discovery. So as we zoom in here a bit, you'll notice that these lines do represent the ports or the links that are connected. These links also represent a status. Again, red is down, green is up. So it will show you if a port is offline or if it's in a down state as what's called is monitoring these devices. If we step back here to the Discover tab, Discovery is very simple. Just provide it with the range of IPs or subnets that you want to discover, and then WhatsUp Gold will take it from there. You do have the ability to also expand into virtual environment discovery. I'll explain what that gives you here in a minute, as well as wireless infrastructure, clients, storage devices, and so on. Since it is agentless, we do rely on protocols. So SNMP, again, mainly for your network devices. That comes in very handy. You also have Windows for your Windows devices and so forth. But you will see beyond Windows and SNMP, there are some other types of credentials that would be necessary depending on what all you're doing. SSH, for example, is one you would need if you're going to be doing any type of configuration management. You want to back up your configurations, check to see where there are any changes and so forth, or even push something like password updates and so on using config management. SSH will come in handy there. And then you will see SMIS for storage monitoring, and then there's also REST API, etc. So with all of that in place, WhatsUp Gold does a ping first and basically asks first, are you online? And then it does a credential check. So what that gives us is the ability to identify what types of devices we're dealing with. I'm going to switch to device list mode here, just so I could show you the device role column. So it's during the discovery that we learn whether something is a switch or a lightweight access point or a server, 2016 operating system. Not sure if I have any. Well, let me jump over to my network view here. So you will see different types of devices. And the roles are important because it's the roles determine what WhatsUp Gold monitors out of the box, right? Or not out of the box immediately. So you've discovered your device and you say, okay, let's go ahead and start monitoring. And you will see this under this view called a discovered network. The discovered network view will show you devices that are monitored or unmonitored. So anything that is not monitored is a black diamond. You can discover as many IPs as you want. We do not get into licensing discussions at this point. The device becomes a licensed device once you enable the start monitoring feature. And then it's then added to this My Network view, which will show you all your devices you're monitoring. So going back to that licensing discussion, I am monitoring 137 devices. If you select a switch, right-click its properties. In this case, not much really. I'm monitoring 10 different items, but as we discussed earlier, it doesn't matter whether it's 10, 100, or 1. It's one device, one license, and if it has, well, this one doesn't. If it does have multiple IP addresses, again, WhatsUp Gold will be able to correctly identify that information for you. Now, let's talk a bit about what we're looking at here in this display map. As we mentioned earlier, let me go ahead and make sure we get this page refreshed here. So as we mentioned, it does layer 2 discovery. It will show you your devices that are connected, neighbors, and so forth. It uses protocols or connection links like CDP, virtual associations, or so on. So any association, whether it's virtual, wireless, network, WhatsUp will use all of these methods to show you the neighbors of each devices that you're monitoring, as well as status on these devices. And depending on whether the role, you'll be monitoring interface, traffic, etc. on network devices, whereas on a Windows server or a Linux system, it will be something like CPU, memory, disk that we're monitoring by default. So on this map, you will see different views. You can create subgroups. This is especially will come in handy as I'm doing here with this group called locations. We can customize the layout where we could edit it, add, maps and, campus, buildings, office space, and so on. And they are nested, so we could drill down into the United States and see different areas and so forth. Just using, let me just center this map, just using the custom layout mode. In the auto layout mode, WhatsUp Go just simply associate devices. It does discovery by association. So devices that are associated or linked together will be shown here in this particular view. Beyond the network devices, you also have layer 2 mapping for where we put these devices according to their context. So whether it's a cloud infrastructure, you'll have your layer 2 associations. Whether it's a core, meaning your network devices, it will show you those devices, how they're linked together. You will see the same thing for your virtual infrastructure. You will notice the storage, etc. So these are groupings that WhatsUp Gold will provide immediately, automatically upon discovery and monitoring of your devices, so that they're neatly categorized, so that you could get in there and say, okay, show me all my my VMs, show me the status of VMs, hosts, devices, and so on. And then you could go immediately into their traffic or device card to see status on everything that we're monitoring on these devices. Beyond the virtual infrastructure, you also have the wireless infrastructure, where, again, using protocols like SNMP, we could determine things like clients that are connected to these devices. I simply have one here. And we could see things like how much bandwidth they're using, signal strength quality, and so on. All this are details we're going to be getting there. Yes, sir.
I appreciate the run through. I think this is really starting to show off the product. I've got a couple of questions kind of piggyback on what Dan had asked previously about kind of the different layers of networking, like layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. Is there a place in the product, for example, where I could say, show me where VLAN 27 is being used in my network, or just give me kind of a spreadsheet view of every interface and what VLAN it's using and what kind of mode it's in, and and akin to that question, other types of network protocols or topology technology kind of assessments, because you're pulling all this data out of SNMP. Right. Some of us might be interested in BGP, routing tables, VLAN, spanning tree state. The kind of the stateful information about a network. I see that you have the opportunity to collect it, and I'm curious if there's a way to see that in the product, and then as a follow-up, extract that data out of an API.
Right. Very good. So with each device record, there's an item here called inventory. And in the inventory section, you will see this list of items that are going to be available that we gathered through the discovery. So here's the ARP cache table, for example, that we pulled from this device. The assets view here will show you things like serial numbers, model numbers, and so forth. You could see then going down to a few of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but specifically things like VLANs. Again, this is information that is going to be, as we pull it from the device, we're going to associate it with this device record. So you could go into each device and see, for example, all of the interfaces that are configured, names of the interfaces, status of the interfaces at the time of discovery. Whether we're monitoring these ports or not, WhatsUp Gold is going to provide you this information, and you could access it here on the device level. Or if you wish to go into a more global type inventory report, you can go into the analyze section under inventory, and then we could access this information again on a global basis or per subnet and so on, and get it this way. So under inventory, again, you will see things like device connectivity. What types of connection are we sharing between? Do we have between these devices? So we could select all network devices, for example, all servers, and then you can see the different types of connection types. What devices are connected to which ones? What ports are they connected to, and so forth. This is the spreadsheet behind every device that we show, where there are links that are connecting them. You could run this particular report and see it in a spreadsheet form. And then with all of our reporting, you have the ability to export them immediately, or you could use the schedule export option to send these reports out on a recurring basis, and basically choose your export option here, and then the recipients via email, so that it will show up in their inbox as a link shown with this particular report. So does that answer that question, or?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me a drive-by view of it. Yeah, and just one follow-up question is via the API, am I able to perform effectively a query search to say, tell me all the devices that are using VLAN 25, for example, or do I need to, go device by device through the API, or do I just say, give me everything, and then I have to write a program to sort through that? Can you touch on that?
Yeah. So WhatsUp Gold, we have. You'll notice there's something called dynamic group examples. And so what the dynamic group examples are they're basically SQL queries where you could say, okay, show me all devices with like attributes and put them all together. So within the mapping or the grouping features of WhatsUp Gold, that function that you're looking for there, for example, it's built in. It's just a matter of designing the query. It actually has a wizard for it, or you could do SQL queries to where you can put them all together, so you can see them all in one place and then run reports based upon those specific items. Jason, other than that,
so the REST API does not provide that inventory data currently. However, if you go to analyze inventory and then VLAN view, that kind of gives you a broader picture of what's in each VLAN, and you could export those reports in CSV to consume any way you see fit. So Mark, if you hit that, go ahead.
Can that function be articulated through the API, or am I really, my user experience has to be point and click and then download and then email that CSV to somebody?
Yeah. So right now, none of that inventory data actually is in the REST API. We did separate it out in our SQL table, so it is queryable, but it's not available in the REST API. We do have plans to continue expanding that REST API with more and more data. Eventually, we'll end up with all of the data from WhatsUp Gold in that REST API, but we just added the REST API capability roughly 2 years ago, and we've been expanding on it ever since with every release. So we're going to continue adding on to it, but right now that inventory data is not one of the things that's available.
Is there a API guide or a list of what is API? So I'm assuming this interface isn't calling APIs that are published, because most API-driven interfaces, I can just say, hey, I can replicate my button clicks, which is,
Yeah, exactly right. So we have private APIs and then we have public APIs. So I'm specifically talking about the public API where this information is not available. Could you reverse engineer this and call our private API? Probably, but we really encourage customers to focus on the public APIs and we continue to expand them. For anyone who's not familiar, we use Swagger. So there is a UI to Swagger that kind of walks through all of the information that's available, how to call it, things along those lines. In addition to that, we do have documentation on docs.ipswitch.com detailing the advanced capabilities of the REST API, how to use it, what's possible, etc.
So any playbooks or anything like that available in a Git repository that give examples of how customers, or how you would get customers 60 or 80% there with creating PowerShell scripts?
Right. So we actually have a community forum where we have a script library where progress employees share things as well as customers share things. We actually had a REST API contest, I think it was last year, where customers submitted a bunch of different things and showed off kind of the cool integrations they have.
All right. Thanks, Jason. So I'm going to continue here. I'm going to jump here to the settings area here and talk about some of the we talked about the monitoring capabilities and WhatsUp Gold. The monitors library in WhatsUp Gold, when you go into this section, you will notice there are 3 types of monitors that WhatsUp Gold will provide. And when I say WhatsUp Gold, in this case, we're talking about the core product. I'm not talking plugins or add-ons. So it has performance monitoring. So think of CPU utilization, traffic bandwidth, and so on. These are what are known performance monitors, where we could just trend data over time. And so what you're looking at here in this list are the different types of performance monitor types that you could use to grab information from devices that you're monitoring, whether it's through REST API, PowerShell, SQL queries, and so on. So we give you different avenues of getting the data depending on what types of devices that you're monitoring. We also have what's called passive monitoring, where in this case, we're not polling, or we're not going out there doing our poll to extract this data, but we're passively listening in the background for things like Windows event logs. Let's say you want to track a user lockout, for example. You could rely on Windows events whenever that event is triggered to alert WhatsUp Gold, and then WhatsUp Gold take whatever action you've assigned to it. Same for syslog, same for traps. Now, we'll talk a bit about log management. We talked about it earlier. Mark mentioned log management. That is different from what you're looking at here. This is more for alerting on specific events that might be triggered on your network, as opposed to ingesting logs and keeping it for archiving. So this is merely for monitoring specific events that you're interested in getting alerts for, as a passive monitor. And then finally, you have what are called active monitoring. So active monitors, anything that you saw earlier where they were in a green status or red status or a yellow status, those are called active monitors. So basically using, we're basically checking to see, is it up, is it down? If it's down, it's red. If it's up, it's green. And so we're not necessarily tracking trends over time with an active monitor. We're just simply telling you each poll, did it meet the up criteria? Did it meet the down criteria? I like to use this APS UPS monitor as an example to show you what that would look like. So we're looking at down conditions, and if it matches a down condition, it changes colors, right, from green to red. And beyond things like APC, UPS, or ping, what you're looking at here in this list of various items that we can monitor with the core product out of the box. So we can monitor for things like file properties. Did a file get modified in the last hour, for example? And WhatsUp Gold could take a look at that and alert you whenever it happens. You could do things like website monitoring. You'll see there's JMX. There are things like PowerShell. We've talked a bit about printer monitoring and toner status, etc. You have all of this out of the box. Process monitor. You can monitor executables, EXEs, with either SNMP or WMI. Service monitor is here again. Windows monitoring for using either SNMP or WMI is available, and then you will see there's a SQL queries and so on. This is a really good one, the SSL certificate monitor, pointed at your website where, let's say you want to be notified if your certificate is going to be expiring, let's say within the next 60 days or 30 days. What's going to take a look at that? And then, of course, there's storage monitoring. And then finally, WMI monitoring for your Windows monitoring needs. So all of these, again, you'll notice I have quite a bit here configured in my monitor library. You can apply as many of these items as you want to your devices. It does not affect licensing. So when you go into the library section here, you will see monitors, you will see credentials, you will see something called roles and subroles. Remember, we talked about devices. WhatsUp Gold is able to identify what is a switch, what is a router through discovery. And so within the roles library, there are certain items that we will, the roles, this is where they're defined. This is where we have things like, or we could set it up to where we could apply actions automatically or action policies automatically to these devices once we discover and start monitoring them. So when you go into settings, you'll see the actions and alerts area here where we could go into the different types of actions that are available. I don't call them notifications because we do more than notifying you via email, or you'll see pager, or I think there's a beeper at the top, there's SMS and so on. We talked about the ServiceNow integration. We have OpsGenie. PagerDuty actually uses the log to file option, where you could integrate WhatsUp Gold with PagerDuty. But beyond that, you'll see different types of things like config management. Again, this is leveraging our config management add-on to where we could, let's say when we get a notice that something's changed on a device, where we could execute something immediately using the config management add-on. You have other options like post to IFTT, if this then that, which uses webhooks to other applications. You could post to Teams, Slack, etc., run it as a PowerShell script, and then even do a service restart. So what you get with WhatsUp Gold in terms of actions and alerts are the ability not just to notify you, but to do what we call self-healing type actions, or also integration with other types of products. So everything here, again, is available in the core product. I'll jump into some of the add-ons here that we see and talk about it a bit. So in this section, you'll see what are called add-ons, right? And so we offer 5 really that paid for add-ons. Those are the application monitoring, config management, log management, network traffic analysis, and virtual monitoring. The application monitoring, simply what I like about this is that it comes with a library of what we call application profiles, where in each profile the application has various components. Let me grab something that we might all be familiar with, like, okay, Active Directory Controller. You'll notice there's a components tab here, and what you will notice here is there are a number of items that we will monitor in a given during a given poll to give you an overall or a more comprehensive view of how the application itself is performing. So we're looking at various status. In this case, it is Active Directory, so we will rely much on WMI. These are values or data that we will pull through Windows Perfbon, as well as basic checking of services, whether they're running or not. So as WhatsUp Gold monitors the application, it's going to monitor all of these items and then report back on what is online, what is not, and so on. So you'll be able to see all of this under the Analyze section here, where there's a application monitoring dashboard. In this case, I'm looking at SQL Server for today. And in this case, I have a bunch of stuff that are down on my SQL Server application. The other one that we have is config management. We talked about this a bit. It does come with a system script library where you could do backups of your configuration. You could change passwords and so on. The scripts are there. They're tied directly to those devices through their SNMP system object ID. And then you'll be able to see what type of scripts there are, whether it's something with SSH or something that requires Telnet. We'll be able to just edit any of these, and then you could go in there and then you could edit any script there. So, or you could add more and so on to this library. So it comes ready to do your backups of your Cisco's, your HP's, Dell, and so on out of the box. Again, I mentioned earlier the requirement there is that it uses the devices have SSH credentials assigned to them. It's just a simple process of selecting which devices you want to associate these tasks with, whether it's a group of devices or individual devices, and then you can schedule it. Under this threshold tab, this is an optional part of the way config management work, because this is strictly for alerting you when it detects things like config changes or it fails to run. And you also notice that you could also audit these devices using whatever available policies you want to audit devices with, and then it will tell you if it failed any of these policies. And of course, you could be emailed any configuration changes that it detected when it runs. Under the Analyze config management area here, you'll see a number of reports. One of them is the start versus run. You could do a filter here where it will just show me all the differences that it found. And you could click on anything with a differences link, and it will show you where in the configuration there are differences between the run, well, the start, our previous backup, versus the current one. And so with that device, it will go ahead and make a new backup when it detects that the configuration is different from the previous configuration that WhatsUp Gold made a backup of. And then you have your network traffic analysis, where using protocols like NetFlow, we can then tell you things like what are the top interfaces by traffic, top interfaces by cities, or we could look at things like senders and receivers. Who are the top talkers on your network? Which protocol, which application are they using? Are they going to some specific website? And with each of these, you'll be able to filter any piece of data that you're interested in here. So if I wanted to see, for example, who's on this, well, it's Meraki, but who's on this Meraki website, it will go ahead and change the entire report with that filter to show you what that information would look like, which port, etc., is being used, and then just simply clear it up here. There's also the troubleshooting section where it will show you things like suspicious connections that are happening. We talked about it a bit earlier. Who are the top senders with the most conversation partners? This top area here for add reports, it gives you additional types of reports. If it's not in these dashboards, you could just simply add a completely new view, or you could just simply select any item here that you wish to show on a report and then tell it where you want it added to that dashboard. But by default, it will give you a good dashboard to start with, to where you'll get all the pertinent information that you might be after, but these are configurable as well.